I want to bring on the next speaker. Abdel is the new head of ecosystem at Starkware. He's a multi-talented individual. He led the exploration team at Starkware, and is also one of the original authors of EIP 1559.
Hey, is it working? Is it working? Yeah. Okay. So today I will be talking about this philosophy of Starknet of building differently, and why we accepted and why we embrace those differences and why we think this is actually good for Starknet. And also I will touch a bit on the correlation between the technical stack and the impact on the social layer and how it shaped the culture of the builders on Starknet, and how we try to reflect that and stimulate that with the exploration team. So as you know, Starknet is a validity rollup, but I won't go into the details because there will be multiple talks about that. So I will focus more on the social layer and the differences. So let's tackle the elephant in the room, which is the EVM compatibility. So as you may know, Starknet is not EVM compatible, unlike all other layer 2 solutions. And I want to remind you that it's a feature and not a bug. It's really on purpose, and I want to reflect a bit on the impact it had on the social layer of Starknet and the shared identity of the builders on Starknet. So I will say that, because at first you can think that it's a big weakness of Starknet and it creates a lot of friction, and it's harder to bring developers, and it's true, but it also had a lot of strengths and advantages for our ecosystem. So Cairo, which is the language that you have to learn to build the smart contracts on Starknet, indeed creates some friction, but it was also a great filter in terms of motivation of the builders, because it does not make sense for you to learn Cairo if you don't want to do something meaningful, because if you just want to do a low-quality project, you can just copy-paste thousands of Solidity projects and deploy on 50 different EVM layer 2 solutions. So people who actually learn Cairo, they want to build something meaningful, and they think out of the box because it's a new language with its new primitives. So they tend to think differently than what we can see in the EVM ecosystem and with Solidity developers that tend to just build and copy-paste different things without really doing some innovation and disruptive features. Also, I want to remind people that the EVM on the layer 1 on Ethereum itself is not immutable, so it's not like it won't change anymore in the future. It will continue to evolve, and this will be a burden for all EVM layer 2 solutions to maintain this compatibility, and we will see a big fragmentation of the different variants of compatibility, because already today, I don't know if you know, but Vitalik described already 4 different types of compatibility for the DKEVM. So it creates actually some fragmentation for dApps developer, because they can think at first that they can just simply copy-paste and deploy on different ZK-EVM, but depending on the different types, they will have to do some modifications. So it's even worse, because they will have to maintain small modifications of their code base depending on the types of EVMs. And I suspect that it will become even worse over time, because as the EVM will continue to evolve, we will see multiple different variants of compatibility. And actually, I think that there is one ZK-EVM that will be well positioned to face those evolution, and it's Kakarot. And fun fact, it's written in Cairo, which gives you an indication of the power of Cairo. Another big difference that we have is that we are the only layer 2 that has only native account abstraction. Basically, usually what you have on different blockchains, you have 2 types of accounts. You have externally owned accounts that are usually user wallets, and you have smart contracts. So the idea of account abstraction is that everything is a smart contract, including accounts, which gives flexibility. But we went to a point where we have only native account abstraction. So if you are on Starknet, you can only use that. And actually, it's a big strength, because, again, if you have multiple flavor of different types of accounts, like EOAs, plus some, because there are some attempts on Ethereum ecosystem to bring account abstraction with the ERC 4337, but you have some layer 2s that have those 3. They have EOAs, they have 4337 account abstraction, and native account abstraction, which again brings some fragmentation for dApps and complexity for people that will integrate those solutions. And when you have only native abstraction, you can have better security models because you can prevent some typical flaws, security flaws that you have with EOAs, for example. So the idea is really to bring Web 2 user experience, but with Web 3 security and sovereignty. Of course, you want to preserve the possibility of having your self-custody and whatnot, but you want to bring a very smooth UX for users. And having only native account abstraction makes Starknet a unique place for dApps builder. So really, it's all about sovereignty in the end. We want to be fully sovereign for our roadmap and not depend on some existing legacy tech. So that's why we did not want to have this EVM compatibility, because in the end, it's a lot of friction and limitations that we don't want to face. So it means that we have full freedom to innovate, and we can really push the frontiers of innovation without being constrained by those limits of compatibility. And being sovereign really means that Starknet is limitless. We want to design it from first principles and not being limited by any existing way of thinking or legacy technology. So how we try to reflect this mindset with the exploration team. So I will talk about the goals of the exploration team. One of the first goals is to eat our own dog food. So the goal is really to build with Cairo and the Starknet stack to really understand better the pains of the builders that are building on Starknet. So we can then provide, for example, the education teams with real-world examples. We can internally set up some testing infrastructure that is close to what applications on Starknet will have. And we can try to create a positive feedback loop with engineering, because we, by using our tech, we understand it better and we know how is it to use it as a user of this technology. We try to help to increase the level of quality of the ecosystem. The goal is really to build like innovative and exciting projects, but to try to keep a high quality standards and try to be as close as possible to some production grade software, because usually there is a huge gap between building something on the hackathon and building a real-world applications, and basically we try to fill the gap by having those high-level quality standards on those projects that are all open source and that people can use them, build on top of them, take them, and innovate. And another goal is to stimulate the synergies between the projects in the ecosystem, because all those projects that we are creating are open source, and we can identify the synergies between the projects in the ecosystem. And we actually see a lot of those synergies, like basically people using projects that we started in the exploration team and so on. So another goal is really to push the frontiers of the Starknet technology. One goal is to showcase the power of Cairo and the Starknet stack. So this was the original idea of Kakarot, which is the ZK AVM in Cairo, which basically initially was just an idea of showcasing what you can build with Cairo, because obviously we wanted to show that you can build complex applications with Cairo, and EVM is a complex application. So of course, if you can build even a ZK AVM with Cairo, it means that you can build literally everything. Another direction that we have is to explore different paths and be able to innovate, and potentially also faster than the public Starknet itself, because we have, of course, less constraints, because we don't have to maintain an existing network and so on. So this is, for example, the case of Madara project, which is a validity rollup framework for Starknet app chain that is compatible with the public Starknet. And we use the Substrate technology, which is the technology created by Polkadot team, to be able to build blockchains. And it's also a good way to create some bridges with different ecosystems, because, for example, Substrate developers, for them it was easy to contribute on Madara because they already had the knowledge of Substrate. So it's also a good way to attract new builders in the ecosystem. And also, sometimes we want to enable new use cases. This was the case of Beerus, which was an exploration project that we started, and now it's maintained by a team in the ecosystem. It's a Starknet-like client that is using Merkle proof for verifying the integrity of data when you use an external third party for RPC queries. We try also to increase the diversity of the Starknet stack. This was, for example, the case of the Cairo VM in Zig, because Zig is a new, not new, but relatively young language that becomes more and more popular, and it'll start to being used in different blockchains. So it's also a good way to bring even more developers. that will be able to contribute to the Starknet technology, but they won't have necessarily to learn Cairo to be able to contribute to Starknet stack. So this is a graph of the evolution of the developers on Starknet ecosystem. So as you can see in the electric graph, electric capital report, developer report, we are the fastest growing ecosystems in terms of developers. We really encourage and stimulate open source contributions. We are the first and biggest customer of OnlyDust platform. So OnlyDust is a platform to reward and incentive open source developers that contribute to open source projects. So we were able to onboard nearly 300 new Starknet contributors to Starknet using those exploration projects. And we try really to onboard developers, to guide them, to mentor people, to make sure that they have everything they need to be able to contribute in a meaningful manner on Starknet. And really, the goal is also to help, to have a retention of developers in the ecosystem, because they will want to improve their skills, but it will take them some time before they are able to join a company in the ecosystem or to build their own project. So contributing to the exploration projects is a good way to continue to improve your skills while still being paid for your open source contributions. And once you are ready, you can find a job in the ecosystem or build your own project, or you can even take the ownership on the exploration projects. This was the case of Kakarot, which started as an exploration project, and now it's a fully autonomous company that is completely autonomous and now leading the project. And also another path is, if you want to continue building and take the ownership of an exploration project that is non-directly something that can be converted in a business, but this is, if it is a public good, there are also some ways to keep those projects autonomous and have a developer partnership with the foundation to maintain those as a public good for the ecosystem. So last year we distributed on those projects 600K, and this year we'll have a bigger budget for bringing more developers to Starknet. So really, last year was the confirmation year in terms of the stack and our philosophy of building a strong social layer and a shared identity of builders. And this year will be the year of scale, and we'll try to grow the Starknet ecosystem together. Yeah, thank you.